Hello, I'm Jonasz Lewiński and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. No fireworks over at Gazprom in 2025. With the onset of the new year, Europe has embarked upon a bold new era of energy security, casting away the vestiges of dependence on Russian gas that used to flow across the territory of war-torn Ukraine. Yet not everyone is happy with this, with Slovakia at the forefront of the outcry against the termination of the deal. In an effort to get back at Kyiv for cutting off gas flow, Bratislava vowed to end energy support for Ukraine. Soon afterwards, Poland said it is willing to help Kyiv out of this predicament. Today, we shall examine the ongoing tectonic shift in Europe's energy sector with our guest Rostyslav Khotin, senior editor at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So first, let's take a glance at Ukraine's decision. Ukraine is going to lose out on the lack of transit, but it says Gazprom stands to lose much, much more.
Yes, indeed. Ukraine annually received several last years about maybe $800 million annually from transit fees for transit of Russian gas through Ukrainian territory. But Russia is to lose much, much more. The estimates are around between $5 billion annually for Gazprom, for Russian Gazprom gas monopoly, and even there are estimates depending on gas price around $6.5 billion annually, which is Russia is to lose now. So these are figures uncomparable. Ukrainians think that it will damage Russian ability to finance its war machine in this war against Ukraine. If Russia is to lose these billions and billions of dollars annually from transit of Russian gas to Europe. So Ukraine feels that it's a winning side, and it was a matter of, as Ukrainian Energy Ministry said, it's a matter of national security to stop Russian gas transit through Ukrainian territory. President Zelensky also calls this strategic defeat for Russia. So Ukraine was firm despite pressure from countries like Slovakia, Hungary, and even Russian Gazprom to continue to pump Russian gas through Ukrainian territory. Kyiv said no and was firm in its decision.
So we've extensively covered the dispute between Ukraine and Slovakia. Robert Fico traveling to Moscow to talk to Vladimir Putin about this. But let's talk about Poland's decision to offer its help. How would it be implemented, would you say? Some people are asking questions like who's going to pay for the possible energy support provided to Ukraine. Can you fill us in on the inner workings of those arrangements?
You know, Ukraine used to pump Russian gas through its territory to Slovakia primarily. Some countries also depended on the Russian gas coming through Ukraine, countries like Hungary, Austria, to a very small degree the Czech Republic, but mostly it's Slovakia and Austria and Hungary. In return, Ukraine has been receiving electricity from Slovakia, and Robert Fico, Slovak Prime Minister, threatened to cut off electricity supplies as in retaliation for stopping of receiving Russian gas through Ukraine. So he wanted to retaliate with stopping of electricity supplies to Ukraine, which are crucial now in a time of war because Russia damages heavily Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Blackouts are common in Ukrainian regions and in big cities. So he wanted to retaliate with electricity supplies. And then Poland stepped in saying, well, wait, we will support Ukraine with electricity supplies from our grid, because Ukrainian electricity grid now is connected with the European electricity grid. So Poland stepped in and supported Ukraine, and Slovakia's threat was kind of a paper threat.
So I'm assuming that this will once again be a deal on a commercial basis between friendly countries, right?
Indeed, yes, because Ukraine pays for these electricity supplies from Slovakia and Poland. It pays. It's kind of, but also if Ukrainian energy infrastructure is repaired or untouched by Russian strikes, by missiles and drones, then Ukraine in some hours of the day has a surplus of electricity. It also can export electricity to the European Union neighbors.
So I think it's worth pointing out because sometimes you might get some populists saying that this is some sort of charity. It is most definitely not. Now we're going to move on to another part of this tectonic shift that's taking place in Europe. To what extent do you think Europe can still say, okay, we need to do more when it comes to energy independence? For example, the Rosatom issue. European companies, power stations, some of them at least, still using uranium imported from Russia. Do you think that this could be brought to an end within foreseeable future?
We will see. It's difficult to predict because Hungary is dependent on fuel from Russia. Russia is building nuclear power plants in some countries. Bulgaria used to be dependent. Others also. So it's difficult because atomic energy is a bit different thing, especially nuclear fuel supplies. Then the spent fuel is also a problem where to kind of bury it. This spent nuclear fuel. It's kind of different, but generally speaking, this stoppage of Russian gas supply, the end of Russian gas transit through Ukraine, is a major tectonic shift on energy in the energy history of Europe, because since 2022 the Nord Stream pipelines is not operable. Then Russia stopped export via Belarus and Poland, Yamal Western Europe pipeline, and now through Ukraine because of Ukrainian decision.
Speaking
So
of
Russia
which,
is
Putin has recently mentioned the Yamal pipeline. He seems to be winking seductively at Europe, saying you could still have cheap gas, we could still use that pipeline. Why is he actually doing this? And also, is there a risk perhaps that he could launch some sort of arrangement whereby Russian gas would be disguised as gas coming from other sources, like Central Asia, for example?
Russian gas never been has been cheap. It's always expensive, politically expensive gas. It's never came at a cheap price for the Europeans, because first of all, Russia charge European countries very high prices, maximum prices. Gazprom took these prices out of the air. Depending on what kind of relations does Russia have with any particular country in the European Union. If it's friendly country, pro-Moscow regime, it charged it less price. If it's kind of hostile, presumably hostile NATO member, kind of taking firm position against Russia, Russia charged higher price. So it was a very politically motivated price. First of all, secondly, so it was commercial price, but also political price was added a bit. Secondly, when Putin took office more than 25 years ago, Russia pumped through Ukraine 130 billion cubic meters of gas annually. 130 billion cubic meters. Lately, it dropped to just 30 billion cubic meters. So, and now it's zero, just nil, nothing. So that's how. But because Moscow always used gas as a political weapon against Ukraine, against the European Union, it shows how Putin was defeated by Ukrainian decision to stop this gas transit. Also, let's remember that Russian gas was used by Moscow also to corrupt political elites in these countries where the gas was headed to. Ukrainian political elite was very dependent and corrupt because of Russian actions in the 90s and later. Bulgarian political elite, Slovakian, and many other German political elite. A lot of
So as you're
political
saying,
elites in those.
As you're
Yes.
saying, this is
They,
geopolitically very, very expensive. Rostyslav Khotin was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
thank you, Janos.
And I'm Ina Shrevinsky. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us for more latest news and updates.